Ladies and gentlemen, here it is. The most listened to radio show on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Today's show is sponsored by Dr. Jacalyn. Take charge of your life personally, financially, and professionally. Visit drjacalyn.com to book an appointment today.
Hello and welcome to Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, live here on Business Talk Radio. You are watching the Business Talk Show. I am thrilled to be with you today, and I'm going to bring on my co-host, Mr. Al Cini. Al, welcome to the program.
Dr. Jacalyn, what a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
I'm always glad when you show up, Al. I feel a little bit more comfortable seeing your face.
I'm always relieved when I show up, too. It's great to be here.
We've got a great show today. We've got a very accomplished guest, Mr. Dean Karrel. And yes,
Do we ever?
Yeah. And I've read the book, too. It's fantastic. So this gentleman is really an expert when it comes to really understanding business and some basic rules that you need to follow and really indoctrinate into your practice. And I don't know about you, but I can't think of a better time that we really need some guidance from a business expert.
Well, here we are sort of all sequestered in our homes because of a pandemic nobody expected. And that means we're spending a lot of time inside of our own heads. And this kind of speaks to your specialty, Dr. Jacalyn. When I get wrapped up inside of my own head, I tend to make more mistakes. I make errors in judgment. I overlook things. I overstress things. And, I think reminding people what they're really supposed to be doing, as opposed to what they believe, that inauthentic thing that they feel like they should be doing instead. This book does a great job at doing that. And I know that's what you do in your practice when you coach people.
Absolutely. And I love this book because the way that Dean lays it out, it's easy to understand what the message is that he's trying to convey. And in each of the chapters, the sections, I can envision myself either at some time in the past in my corporate job, my corporate experience, or even today as a business owner. And what about you also as a business owner and what you're doing at BCAT?
Since you brought that up, a lot of organizations, I think, have lost their rudder. I recently sent a mailer out to a mailing list that I communicate with, and the title of this mailer was "How COVID Kills Companies." And what COVID is doing that kills companies isn't separating people from each other. It's detaching everybody in a company from the purpose of the company. So what I find in the work that I'm doing is that people, because they're sequestered, because they're tied up at home, because they don't know what's going to happen next, have lost sight of the rudder of the ship that they're on. And as a result, they're kind of meandering, and everybody feels that. So, now is the time, I think, for everybody to take stock. What I like about this book, Mastering the Basics, is that it's so fundamentally basic. It is one of the best business books I've read because it's so readable. A lot of them are just a lot of talk. This one is just a series of really, really practical lessons that you can pick up very quickly. You don't have to read it cover to cover. You can skip around in it. And every one of these lessons is a lesson that I have learned the hard way over the course of my professional career. Many of them, anyway. I've kind of learned the hard way. So there's a great look around the corner at what could be waiting for you if you just screw this up. That's what I like about this book. So it'll be fun.
I think it's like the Bible of business lessons. So I think it's something that you keep close by and you refer to it on a regular basis. And I think something else about Dean that's incredibly interesting, in addition to him being a career development coach and also a sales trainer, he has 13 courses, at least at the time, 13 courses on LinkedIn that have over 850,000 views.
Wow.
Can you imagine that?
Well, let me tell you, those 850,000 views were all me. That's how dumb I am.
I want to know how many views you have of your page, Al. How many people are on LinkedIn looking at your page?
About 4. So, yes, I'm very impressed. 850,000 is a huge following, but well-deserved because this guy has a lot to say.
Yes, he sure does. And, I like what you just said about what's going on with organizations in terms of losing the rudder. It's kind of a similar thing in life coaching. What I'm finding with my clients is, in a lot of ways, because of COVID, they are lost. And some people, I hate to say it, but some people have really just given up, and other people are thriving. They're looking at this as an opportunity to reinvent themselves, to take risks. It's interesting. A friend of mine, his name is Ralph Graves Jr. We're going to hear from him, one of his commercials. He's a pastor, and I was listening to his show today on WWDB, and the message he was conveying is that not taking a risk is riskier than taking a risk. Try to say that one 5 or 6 times in a row.
No, it's a complicated sentence, but it's a great lesson. I work with people all the time who are worried that they're going to lose business to competition. The reality is, most people, when they lose a business deal, they lose it to a client who decides not to do anything, not to buy anything from anybody.
Right.
That level of paralysis, I think, is so pervasive now. A lot of companies have pulled in their horns. They're not spending money on anything, and standing in place means you sink.
Right.
So
right.
they really need to get back out there and punch again.
Mr. Cini, what risks have you taken in business?
Oh, I've done so many. Well, I have a kind of a creative nature. So over the course of my career, I've probably launched about 50 things, 50 what I thought were really brilliant ideas. And looking back over them, probably more than 40 were really not such great ideas. Probably if I read Dean's book a couple of years ago, I would have avoided doing those 40 things. But I like to create new things, and I like to try them out. They don't always work, but when they do, they work really well. So I've taken some risks, but I think that's part of it. I think that's how the human race moves forward, by taking risks and then evaluating the results of those risks. So,
I agree. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to get too specific because then I'll just look really dumb. How do you help your clients? How do you help your clients embrace risk? I'm sure a lot of people who come to you as a coach probably are worried about risk. Maybe they're a little risk averse. How do you get them to find the courage they need to move forward?
Well, I help them peel back the onion and look at what is the root cause. So typically when people are experiencing, let's say, anxiety, they're feeling overwhelmed, they're paralyzed by fear, there's something at the core of that. And what I found is typically it's fear of failure. It's fear of something. So if I can get them to actually look at that, what does that look like and what is underneath that? What happens if you do fail? What's that going to look like? Then people can start to open up and just take it piece by piece. And I also share with them my own experience, and you're well aware of this, but I have worked in corporate America since 1987. And I worked with my own life coach from New Zealand to put together a plan for me to leave my corporate job. And I came up with plan A, B, and C. And I'm in somewhere between B and C right now. But it was the paycheck. It was giving up that big paycheck and all the benefits and going out on my own. And I just decided to do it. So when I share that with them and they look at me and it's, I'm not falling apart over here, right? I'm still in one piece. I'm still showing up. Then I think people think, you know what, I can try it too.
Then they can try it. I think that fear of failure. I remember once a long time ago, I read a story about Tug McGraw, who was a relief pitcher for the Philadelphia Phillies. And a relief pitcher is probably one of the highest pressure jobs in all of baseball, because you come out there when your team is down a couple of runs and you've got the bases, the other team has the bases loaded, and your job is to try to pitch through the last inning of the game so that your team doesn't lose. And you're doing it in front of 60,000 of your closest friends. So not to mention how many millions of people are watching. So somebody asked him, how do you keep from falling apart when you're called in on the clutch? And he said, well, I like the frozen snowball theory. And they said, well, what's that? He said, well, in a couple of million years, a couple of billion years, the sun is going to burn out and the earth is going to be a frozen snowball spinning in space and everybody's going to be dead. And what the reason why I like to think about that is because on that day, who's going to care that I walked in the winning run at the bottom of the ninth of the seventh game of the World Series and lost it for my team? I mean, what you really do have to kind of get into is the mindset where no matter what it is you do, it's really not going to be all that bad. And it's like you said at the top of the program, not doing anything is worse than doing something wrong.
Right. I always say to people, if you don't try, you're never going to know it. An example that comes to mind for me is I decided to try paddle boarding, but I'm terrified of falling in the water because I'm afraid of fish, which is ridiculous. Let's not even go there. But I decided to get up on the paddleboard and I said to myself, you will not fall, because if you fall, all these horrible things, you could be attacked by a fish. So guess what? I fell the first time out there and I realized it wasn't that scary.
You were not attacked by fish. You were not eaten by piranha. But now I'm thinking, as soon as this lockdown's over, you and I have to get together over a sushi dinner. I got to see how you react to that.
Well, you're on for that one for sure.
Good.
So, Al, what other business issues are you seeing come up for you at BCAT?
Well, it's surprising. I mean, most people, when they think of business, think of for-profit businesses that earn a living, basically provide a service and bill for it. But a lot of the success we've had with the brand and culture alignment approach that we developed is with not-for-profit companies. There are lots of not-for-profits out there that maybe were established over a century ago, who over the course of, let's say, 110 or 115 years, kind of forgot why they were founded in the first place. And brand and culture alignment is a great way to take the current staff of a company that might be 70 or 80 or 90 years old and remind them in a way that really strikes them at their heart, not just in their head, what it is the founder had in mind as the mission of the company when they originally imagined it, when they originally created it. And when you do that in some of these exercises we do, you get people really re-engaged in the mission and purpose of the not-for-profit. And they forget about their day-to-day nonsense that they typically get lost in, and they reorient themselves around what they're trying to accomplish as kind of a larger team. And that's always gratifying to me because that's a great experience for me.
Absolutely. I'm glad to hear that. I was really intrigued by my former employer, ITA Group, a great company out of Des Moines, Iowa. And most of the revenue was from running meetings and events. So national sales meetings, conferences, incentive trips. And then the other part of their business is employee recognition and sales incentive programs. And what's amazing to me is that whole piece of business pretty much went away, right, in the event space, because we're not traveling because of COVID. And yet on the other side, we've never needed employee engagement and brand ambassadors more than we do today. So they were able to reinvent themselves, which I think is really fantastic. That's what it takes today. And I think that's what we're going to hear from Dean also.
I think a lot of those lessons, profiles in courage that kind of emerge in the middle of a situation like the one we're facing today, are the difference between companies that survive and companies that don't. And I know I was reading yesterday that as of, I think, the beginning of this month, about almost 90% of businesses, hospitality businesses in New York City, were unable to pay either all or part of their rent in August. So what we're looking at now is really the beginning of, after struggling and scraping and getting money maybe from the government to keep it going for a little while longer, a lot of companies are now dealing with the long-term effects of this. And whatever it is that you put in place by way of a plan to keep growing has got to be a long-term plan. It can't be a quick fix. What we're learning, I think, in this COVID situation is that it doesn't go away immediately. It could take a year, maybe even 2 years to completely work its way through the economy. So whatever it is you do, you got to be thinking about the long term.
Absolutely. And we're going to bring Dean out after we take a commercial break and hear some messages from some of our friends. So
let's
stay tuned. And then we will bring Dean Karrel out with us to talk about his book.
Very much looking forward to that.
I am too. All right. Stay tuned on Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, the business talk show. We will be right back.
Hey everybody, my name is Ralph Graves Jr. I am the author of this book called Unstoppable. Now, what Unstoppable is about is it's 7 universal laws that will transform how you pursue and achieve success. Why don't you pick up your copy today? Go to my website, www.ralphgravesjr.com. Go to Amazon. This book is sold wherever fine books are sold anywhere in the country. My name is Ralph Graves. Let's be unstoppable together.
RVN TV is a platform for people of any industry to share their story. Over 285,000 viewers are tuning in to RVN TV shows monthly. We guarantee a great experience that you'll be sharing with everyone you know while increasing your personal and company's brand awareness. But what is your brand? According to Forbes, it's a combination of your logo, your product, your design and feel, and your personality. Did you know that aside from being a guest, we offer even more opportunity to boost your brand? Adding your company logo and website on screen during your interview will allow viewers to recognize your brand instantly. Incorporating images and video clips is another great way to showcase your product during your live segment. Let viewers see how good you really are. And most importantly, there's you and your interview. For less than the cost of a newspaper, direct mail, or a magazine ad, you can leave our studio and within 48 hours have a permanent digital copy of your live segment to link to your social media, embed into your company website, or use in email marketing. Investing in your brand is so very important, and we can't wait to have you as a guest.
Make a bold statement by wearing a custom jewelry design from Margie Cidrone, Artisan Jeweler, located at 121 Haddon Avenue in Westmont, New Jersey. Telephone number 215-384-7155. Margie Cidrone is an artisan jeweler who has been a permanent fixture on the renowned Jewelers Row in Center City, Philadelphia since 1988. Starting her business in 1982, all of Margie's designs are individually handmade as well as custom design. She is one of the only jewelers left in the area who still crafts the finest tailor-made diamond jewelry, whether it's a statement piece or an everyday item. In addition to her one-of-a-kind designs, she specializes in pearl stringing and bead jewelry repairs. Margie Cidrone Jewelry pairs nearly 30 years of experience with the building of lifelong client relationships. Dr. Jacalyn has been a client and friend of Margie Cidrone for many, many years. Each week during my show, Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, live on Business Talk Radio, I will be featuring one of the beautiful pieces of jewelry that Margie custom made for me. I urge you to contact Margie through her website, margiecidronejewelry.com. Wait no longer to make your own bold statement.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is, the most listened to radio show on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Welcome back. How are you, Al?
I'm just fine. I can't wait to start talking about this book. It's a great book.
I can't either. So we're speaking today with Dean Karrel, and his book is Mastering the Basics. And let's bring him out from backstage. There he is. Dean, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Jacalyn, and Al. Thank you so much, and your kind words. Al, can I bring you everywhere with me?
You can. As a matter of fact, I'm available. So thanks for bringing that up.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Nice
Great to be here.
Oh, it's so nice to meet you. Can I start with a question? Because first of all, your book is so incredibly readable. It's a separate chapter for each idea. No chapters longer than maybe 2 or 3 pages. Right. It's easy to learn each lesson separately from all the other lessons. I think it's just brilliant. There's one in particular. I won't quiz you and ask you if you remember what you wrote on page 209, but model the way as a leader lesson. Yeah. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that. That's only in your book. It's less than 1 page, and it hit me like a bolt of lightning.
Well, there was a book written a number of years ago by Kouzes and Posner from Wiley Publishing called The Leadership Challenge. And they talk about one of the things of being a great leader is modeling the way. And I think if there's ever anything right now that we need from leadership in our business and in our world are leaders that we can follow. And it's showing compassion, showing care, and being there for people. So modeling the way is a way of leading people so that they feel passionate by following you.
Wow. And I think that's brilliant. And it's walking your talk, right, which should be a much easier lesson for people to learn than it appears to be.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's we overthink how to lead, or people are put into leadership positions and have never been trained. And I think you see that in many companies. Al, the people you work with, and Dr. Jacalyn, the people you coach, you can see that people are put in positions of authority and they've never been trained on how to do that and how to lead people and show that modeling the way. Well,
among the hundreds of lessons in your book, that one kind of stood out. But there was another lesson, and that one, where the first one hit me like a bolt of lightning, the second one kind of hit me like a bad taco. Okay. You have a whole chapter on office romances, a small section on the wisdom of how do you manage things like that.
Right.
I don't think people pay very much attention to that at all. But why don't you talk about where? I don't want to ask you where that came from necessarily, but maybe you can talk about that as a lesson.
Well, I think there in the book there are 200 different topics, and all about the basics of business and things to avoid, things to keep an eye on. And I've just seen it through the years. It's difficult things that happen at sales meetings or corporate meetings, and you have to separate business and your personal life. And I think when they overlap, you just can go down a road that can lead to problems. Now, I know many people who have married people they work with. There's somebody who lives in my house with me who used to work with me.
I read that in your book.
So it can happen, and it can work, and it can be successful. But you do need to be so careful. And the temptations are there, but you have to separate business and our personal lives.
Dean, you bring up such an important point. As I was mentioning my former career, I would sell employee events or conventions, and oh my gosh, the things that went on when you were actually on site there for the meeting, people running between the halls in the middle of the night. It's like, oh, this isn't going to work out too well. But what I wanted to ask you was, so these are incredible lessons that really can apply to everyone. Based on the fact that we're going through this pandemic and people are changing the way they're going to work, how is that impacting, or would it impact the lessons that you've already written? Or do you think that they remain constant regardless?
I think the lessons remain constant, but I think one of the key parts of my book is honesty and being authentic and being genuine and admitting when we need help. And I think that's so critically important now with what we're all going through with the pandemic is everyone say, oh yeah, I'm working well at home. I like working remotely and I don't need to be in an office anymore. Well, that sounds pretty good for the first couple of weeks, but there is a factor that we all go through when we work at home. And there is some people, it's loneliness, and some people are struggling. And it's nice to have video calls and conferencing, but there is a difference than being face to face with people. And so the messages of the book is honesty, authenticity. And I think those can apply in both good times and more turbulent times that we're going through now. And my whole story is just being yourself. And sometimes when we get into business, we try to prove things or we try to act a certain different way. And for all of my years in business, the one thing that I'm always very happy about when people talk about me is they say, Dean, you are what you are. And I lay it out. And it's why fake it? Why fake it? And I mean, Al, you've seen it in business. And Dr. Jacalyn, the people you coach, it's authenticity carries a lot of weight in my opinion.
I read your chapter on authenticity, and I was thinking to myself, how many people I work with all the time that are really always wearing a mask?
Right.
And half the work of dealing with them sometimes is to try to encourage them to take that mask off so you can learn what it is they really think.
Right.
And, one of the things I really enjoyed about working in New York City, and I worked there for about 20 years, is that nobody ever bothers to put that mask on when they come to work. So what you get in New York, and what makes New York such a great town to work in, is that you get authenticity everywhere. Frankness, honesty, authenticity, and a terrific sense of humor is what I always associate with that city.
It's one of the early lessons I got in business was that, sometimes we get intimidated by people with fancy titles or with the advanced degrees, and we try to do things that we're really not been trained to handle yet. And when you talk about that New York style, sometimes we can be intimidated by it. And I remember being very intimidated early on in business by people who had been around the block, so to speak. And then I realized they had the same insecurities and the same strengths that I had. And that's another key aspect of my book. You have to believe in yourself. It's easier said than done, but you have to believe in your abilities.
Oh, wow. Great lessons.
So much of what you're saying, Dean, really parlays into being yourself first, right? Loving yourself, taking care of yourself so that you can love and care for others. So showing up as a real person, being authentic, being honest, and carrying that from your personal life into your business life, and you're just really one and the same person.
That's so true. They don't teach that at a business school. They're teaching advanced theory and advanced strategy, but I don't think they teach well enough the basics of being a good person. And that's what my book is all about, is taking the skills and your qualities, your characteristics, and then being able to enhance them throughout your whole life. And now, Dr. Jacalyn, you're a good example. You say throughout your whole life, you went back to school, you constantly trained, always be learning. And that's another key aspect of my book. It never ends throughout our career. And I think that's, again, so critically important.
Something else I get from your book as I read it too is that you need to be yourself. Definitely authenticity is key, but you've also got to be mindful. Mm-hmm. And you've got a number of lessons in here that are just so obvious, and yet they're rules, but they're more respected in the exception to those rules, I think. When you send an email, do you read it first before you click the send button? You got a chapter on that, and you got a section on what are you doing with, especially now these days, people I think are communicating electronically even more than ever.
Right.
You really need to be careful and mindful about everything you express before you push that send button, because you can't take it back once you've done that.
Yeah, once it's out there, but we've all done it. We dive into our keyboard, right? It's like, I want to get that note out. And then we don't we hit send.
I haven't done it even once since I got your book.
Good.
Not even once.
Well, it's interesting. I posted a video today on LinkedIn where I talked about people who tweet a lot, or they post a lot on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, and they're not thinking first about what they posted. And I talk about social media guidelines in the companies that we all work for, and you have to be so careful. And so again, whether it's an email or whether it's a post on Twitter or TikTok or whatever, you just have to think, be careful, and take a step back first. Basic skill.
Right, absolutely.
I guess this is stuff you use in your executive coaching practice. This is what's a session with you like?
I break it down very basic, talking about skills of what issues that we face in each company. And a lot of things come out. Dr. Jacalyn, I'm sure you hear the same thing. How do I work with a difficult boss? How do I get my lessons across? How do I get people to listen to me? How do I build my confidence? And these are all lessons that take time. And sometimes we're afraid to admit it. And I've had a roller coaster in my career. I had a terrific and fun career. That doesn't mean that every day was a ray of sunshine. There are times when you doubt yourself. We all do. So in my lessons that I talk with people, it's okay to admit that we have fears of what's going on with our jobs. Everybody does right now. What's going to happen around that next turn? And so when I urge people just to be open, be honest, because that's how you can get help and assistance. You raise your hand.
How do I call boss? Keeping in mind that my boss is on the air with us right now. By the way,
I've come a long way out, with bosses, where early on I used to say to people, you stick it out, You work on it. You try communication. It's all the lessons you read in books. I say, communicate more with your manager, and try to come up with the key points where you can improve. As I've gone through the years, I realize some managers are just lousy, and they are managers. They're not leaders. And, it's easy to say, go find another job. It's difficult right now. But if you're in a toxic environment, and if you're with a manager who's not giving you that leeway, they're not going to change. That's why you got to keep your LinkedIn profile up to date. You got to keep your resume up to date, and you just keep networking. I have that in the book also. Networking, we all think it's like, hi, my name is Dr. Jacalyn, and it's on our card here, but it's actually just us communicating. And Al, let's have a chat. Let's have a cup of coffee. Dr. Jacalyn, let's have a chat someday just to see how business is. That's what networking is and how important that is.
Great and advice. I think what's so interesting during this pandemic is, at least for me, I had some concerns about who I would reach out to before in the past based on titles or who, but now you can reach out to anyone because everyone's living through this experience at the same time. And I really feel that people are genuinely good and want to help one another. So what are you both finding?
Well, I think there are those who reach out, and then there are those sometimes who hide, and they should be reaching out more. It's like the people when somebody gets laid off at a company, there's some who reach out and they give the hug, and then there are others who hide in their office because they don't know what to say.
Right.
And good people reach out and they say, "How can I help you?" Or what do you need? Or just be an ear. That again, people think I have to have the answer. Sometimes just listening is just so important for people. Just listen to what they're going through and being a sounding board. And especially now during the pandemic, I think that's a hidden issue that's going on that more and more people are talking about, but the mental health aspect. And that's where, I'm a salesperson. My background is sales and working with customers around the world. I don't have a psychology degree. And I've had to talk to a lot of people saying, you need to seek professional help. I'm a coach. I help with business. I don't help with that other next step. And very important.
But that sounds really great because it sounds like you're staying in your lane, which is something that I just learned recently because I know for me, I was trying to do a lot of things and I was too spread out. So when you stay in your lane, like what you just described, that's when you really can add the most value and feel the best about yourself, I think.
Very true. Sometimes we overextend ourselves. I think we can do all of these things. When I first left Wiley Publishing in 2015, and I said, I want to do something different in my life and career. I went back to school. I took more coaching classes. I love doing sales training. I do the work with LinkedIn, learning the division there. But I realized that I needed to focus. And I work with people in the middle stages of their careers. It's in that they've got some years under their belt, but they're also open to coaching. They're willing to listen. So I'm generalizing now, but let's say it's 30 to 50-year-olds. And it's middle stages of career, middle management. And how can I help them navigate what they're facing in the corporate marketplace? And there are a lot of potholes along the way. And again, I keep it simple and basic.
And really helpful. I mean, when you were talking about the importance of just conducting a meeting around the subject, what can I do to help you?
Right.
I'm thinking if more Zoom meetings were organized with that as an agenda, they'd be a lot more effective than the Zoom meetings we're doing these days are really more about making sure that nobody's goofing off. So that you force them to show up, but you really don't know what you want to talk to them about. And the conversations become kind of meaningless. But how can I help you? Let's go around this Zoom meeting and see what we can do to help each other. I think that's a great way to conduct a meeting like that. It's great advice, Steve.
I had a sales team of over about 150 people at one point, and I made a point of talking to everybody individually a couple of times a year. And that takes a lot of time, but it was so important to look somebody in the eye and say, more about work, but also how's everything in your life going? What can we do to help you? And that's an important lesson that I think I've carried through, in my work now, is that ability to look somebody in the eye and just like you said, Al, say, how can I help you? Well, what can we work on together that can make your career go better in the future?
It's one of the most powerful.
That's a positive approach as opposed to being intimidating. So I think people would be definitely receptive to that. And I really want to ask you about the process of writing your book and also about your LinkedIn sales training, but we're going to take a break and hear some messages from some of our friends. So stay tuned.
Hey everybody, my name is Ralph Graves Jr. I'm the host of the Ralph Graves Jr. Show, and I want to invite you to pick up my book, Unstoppable. I wrote a book called Unstoppable. It's 7 universal laws that will transform how you pursue and achieve success. The one thing that my 20 years of law enforcement has taught me is that no matter who you are, we are all governed by universal laws, like gravity. But in this book, we're going to talk about laws like the law of forgiveness, laws like the law of control, the law of intelligent practice, the law of expectancy. I was able to see how those, no matter what their background was, those who identified and treated these laws with respect, they were able to go on and lead successful lives. So pick up this book, and you can go ahead and pick it up at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, RalphGravesJr.com, where anywhere where fine books are sold. Thank you.
There are 7.7 billion people on Earth today. 40% of these people are under the age of 25. Young adults are the most fertile mission field in the world today. In Scripture, we see Jesus pouring his life into 12 young adults who he equipped to change the world and all of history. Like Jesus, we believe that the best approach to reach the world with the gospel is to invest in young, emerging leaders and equip them to build disciple-making movements. Concentric is the notion of surrounding and sharing a common center. Our center is the model and strategy of Jesus for both leadership development and ministry formation. As a global alliance, we provide equipping in biblical leadership based on Jesus' example in the New Testament. Jesus modeled for us how to make disciples that reproduce. Focusing on leadership development is key to creating movements that spread the gospel and Jesus' disciple-making strategy to young leaders around the globe. Our Ministry Alliance partners are actively equipping leaders and building movements of multiplication that reproduce the life of Christ. Join us today to equip young leaders with Jesus' strategy that will change cities and nations.
The session that we had with BCAT was really entertaining and enlightening. We were able to put together some very specific steps that we as individuals can take, and it was really fun to all come together and see sort of where we're going as a team and how we can all get there together.
We had a tremendous experience with the BCAT partners. One of the challenges that we have as an organization is to make sure that we have the right people in the right chairs doing the right thing. To do that well, you have to have synergy. You can try to dream up ways to make sure that your group does that, or you can rely on experts. We would recommend BCAT partners to anybody who's looking to take their organization to the next level.
Academy Sedan and Limo is a full-service transportation company serving the Philadelphia metropolitan area with full knowledge of the New York City, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C. areas. We pride ourselves on being the most dependable, conscientious company in the industry. Our always on-time service and dependable pricing make us the company to call for any event or occasion. Our vehicles can accommodate any size party for any occasion. Our vehicles range from four-door sedans to SUVs to minivans to limo buses to full-size tour buses and can accommodate groups of 2 to 100. We offer airport shuttle service or over-the-road service without limitation regarding mileage or time, and no drive is too long or too far. So if you find yourself in need of transportation of any type with any vehicle, give us a call at 610-842-4564 and let us show you what a real transportation company can do for you.
Use code ACADEMY2020 to receive 20% off your first 3 rides, including parking and tolls.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is, the most listened to radio show on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Today's show is sponsored by Dr. Jacalyn. Take charge of your life personally, financially, and professionally. Visit drjacalyn.com to book an appointment today.
Well, welcome back. We look a little different now, but
we moved around a little bit.
Side by side. So before the break, Dean, I was suggesting that it would be really informative to understand what that process was of writing your book, how long it took you, and what the impetus was for you to write it.
Well, what's interesting, throughout my career, I've always talked with the teams that I've worked with about mastering basic skills. So mastering the basics was a line that I would use at sales meetings and in presentations, and again, with the focus on trying to keep things simple. And I've always had these ideas on a variety of different topics. As I'd go on my business trips, I'd write a page a day or a page and a half a day. And I came up with 200 different topics, again, ranging everything from ethical behavior to working a meeting to meeting customers. And I talk about emotional intelligence and positivity. And it was really a fun process. And coming from the publishing business, I had a good idea about how the process works, and that it's easier said than done to publish a book and get it sold. There's a lot of digging, a lot of hard work, and not everybody's going to be able to buy the condo in Florida based off of book sales. So the big bestsellers are few and far between, but I did it because it was a labor of love, and these are the messages and the things that I love talking about with the sales teams and people I've managed and worked with through the years. I worked with an editor that was from a company that I used to be a part of, Wiley Publishing, and she's now freelances and helped clean me up, so to speak, editorially. And I found a publisher, and I know a lot of people in the bookstore industry who've helped me distribute it. So it was nice that they were there to help me along, from Amazon to Barnes & Noble to independent bookstores. And I traveled the world in my old job. And so it's nice that my book is available globally too. And so it's been a lot of fun. It really has been a real treat. I use it now in presentations. I speak a lot to students, recent college graduates, and talking to them about what to do when you get in the business world. And what's been fun is I do a little thing at each of the presentations, and maybe we'll do this at the end now. I'll have you pick out a page. You give me a number, pick any number, and then we talk about it. Because I do it with the students. I say, pick a number, and let's just talk about that topic. And it's a fun way of keeping the classes engaged, and also, keeps me on my toes too.
It's great you brought that up that way, because it's simple enough that you can do that with it. I mean, it's not. It's interesting because when you know the truth, it doesn't take long to tell it. When you're not sure, it takes you forever to explain where you're going. And so, I mean, what I really like about the book is every one of the lessons rings true, because I know you've experienced it at some level.
Right.
Done them. And I had just received by email from a partner of mine a non-disclosure agreement. And my first instinct was, sign it and send it back. And then I read your chapter, 1 page, 2 pages on non-disclosure agreements.
Right.
And I went back and I read the NDA and I found 3 things I wanted to change, which the other party agreed to, by the way. Right. And then we signed it, and I felt much better about the agreement because I took that extra time based on your book, which I think is just a great lesson. So
there you go. That's good to hear. I'm glad that it got you moving in the right direction with the NDA. Signing agreements, signing contracts, is unnerving at times. So getting advice from others on anything you sign is always a good idea. You made a good point about truth also, and it's something that through the years in business, and even when we deal with companies, sometimes if you have an issue or a concern, people try to dance their way through it. And I learned in the middle of my career, if you've made a mistake or if you really fouled things up, just call it out and apologize sooner rather than later. We see this in politics sometimes where people will say, no, I didn't do it. I had nothing involved with that. And then 2 weeks later, more information comes out and they apologize. And then a month later, then they, it's become a full-blown scandal. Right. It's better to cut to the chase. And in business, you make a mistake. I made a mistake.
I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I won't do it again. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of power in just that.
And by the way, think about how good it feels to just own up to it right away instead of walking around with that trapped inside of you that you want to tell somebody, but now it's too much time has passed by, so it's better just to get it out right away.
We're often afraid of telling people bad news. We never want to tell our boss bad news. But the fact of the matter is, if you wait too long and tell your boss the bad news a month later, that's when they get upset.
That's when they get worked up. Like, why
Leaders
didn't I
want to
hear
know
this?
the problem so they can help
Right.
solve it. When you start to try and fix it yourself, you just dig a deeper hole. Believe me, I've been there.
You know, Dean, I've got a question for you because I know you're a career salesperson, and one of your chapters, in fact, talks about stereotypes, typical salesperson, that kind of thing. And there is no such thing as a typical salesperson. And you're kind of proving that a salesperson is somebody who starts with a question like, "How can I help you?" which is not normally what we think a salesperson is. But my question for you is, a lot of companies have a kind of a Grand Canyon between their marketing team and their sales team. And they hate each other often.
Yeah.
Have you seen that? And what do you do when you see that? How do you deal with that?
What a royal waste of time, right? It's with the business is tough enough as it is. But when you have squabbles between departments, whether it's sales and marketing or IT, but of course I've seen it, and it's something you have to nip in the bud. Every company has squabbles between various departments. And again, through the years, I finally said, as I managed teams, was enough. Let's get everybody together. Let's sort it all out because we have to move forward. The marketplace is too competitive for teams not to be working together. This is something you have on your website, Al. You talk about collaboration, and collaboration is so critically essential. The good companies collaborate. They work together. They find ways to provide solutions. That's my message as a salesperson. So you talk about stereotypes also. It's a real thorn in my side of the stereotypes. Every profession has a stereotype, whether it's lawyers, accountants, and salespeople is often because of what we see in movies. It's like the Wolf of Wall Street. That's the guy has reformed himself, but he went to jail.
Yeah.
Alec Baldwin's, always be closing. It's great theater, but it's like that's not.
No. I have a salesman friend who says that's really a horror movie. That's not. That's a terrifying film. And it's funny. By the way, I wanted to let you know I did notice that I had one visitor to my website. I'm glad it was you, Dean.
You can pay him later.
I will.
Dean, I want to talk about. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Jacalyn. It's in my book. I talk about planning and preparation. So the basics of looking at both of your websites, looking at your business, looking at prior recordings you've done, how you handle, how you speak. Just again, Dr. Jacalyn, you went back to school and got an advanced degree, not in your 20s, and that's really impressive. And then now the work that you've done in media and consulting and building your business. So how hard is that for me to do? It took not a long time, but it's a basic skill that I teach. That goes right from the book: planning and preparation.
Oh, it's common sense too, and yet it's not so common. Wow.
Right. People forget about their common sense, I think. And also, Dean, you've mentioned the fact about being a lifelong learner. This pandemic time that we've had, how many people are actually bettering themselves? How many people are taking courses or trying different things? I know for me, I got my yoga sculpt certification, and I just started Monday with meditation teacher training to get certified in that. And it's been really illuminating. But I did want to get to LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is such an important tool. And to be honest with you, I wasn't aware that there were trainings on LinkedIn, and here you have 13 courses. So can you speak to that?
Well, LinkedIn is an amazing company. You look at a company that's run so well. You talk about great leadership. I'm not an employee of LinkedIn, so I'm not getting a cut for this. They are just a well-run organization, and they have a number of divisions. We know them from years ago. You put your profile on there, your work history and your career and so forth. What they'd say, they have a division with them now called LinkedIn Learning. And they have over 15,000 courses, video courses, ranging everything from technology to creative and business. And they are really exceptionally well done. And I have courses in the sales category, but they have some really high-powered people in leadership and in management and project management and again, creative and technology. My courses, again, similar to my book, I teach basic sales. I don't teach the fancy methodologies and fancy training techniques. I teach about, show up on time, doing planning and preparation, asking good questions, listening, stop talking. And those are basic sales skills. They are offering a lot of these courses for free right now on LinkedIn Learning because of the pandemic. And they have learning paths. So, for example, a number of my courses right now are offered for free where people around the world are watching them. And again, I'm pretty much low level within the organization as far as the number of courses. There are some people who have hundreds of thousands and millions of views. It's really a remarkable and a great way of get some good training from some talented people.
Those are great opportunities. That I'm glad you pointed that out, because a lot of people don't know about those things and really need to go look for them. You can learn an awful lot for no cost because so many of those programs are offered for free. So,
I'm on LinkedIn every day. Again, we used to think of it as, just for recruiting, and it is a major aspect of the company. It's used for recruiting, but it's for marketing and sales strategies. They have sales divisions, marketing divisions, and I post all the time talking about basic business skills. How about that? And I communicate with people from around the world. It is so exciting, from Russia, to the Middle East, Australia, Europe. And it's a great way for easy networking, and it's opened up a whole world for me. And I make that a part of my course of, you have to be on LinkedIn, regularly each week.
Oh, and that's a hidden benefit of it too. The other people that are on these courses with you are contacts.
Yes,
that's part of a network. Those are networking opportunities. Those
Absolutely.
people can help you. So
yeah, so the people who are listening today, they should connect with me and follow my work there also. And I post videos there regularly every other week on some subject and other content. But there's some really talented people you can learn from.
Mm-hmm. And where are you, Dean? By the way?
I'm in northern New Jersey, a little town called Rivervale, New Jersey, about 25 miles northwest of Manhattan. Okay. And so it's a nice little area. I grew up in Connecticut, went to college in Ohio. So I've lived in a variety of different places. And
But for somebody who might need an executive coach, you could be a good guy to reach out to, and you could Zoom coach anybody anywhere.
The best way to reach me is via LinkedIn. I have a website, theskyridgegroup.com. But on LinkedIn, Karrel, Dean, not a lot of us, it's just one. And connect with me, and I'm happy to help people. And if I'm not the right person, I'm also happy to help and refer people to others. And
I mean, I'm really blessed. I've got so many problems. Here I am, joined by two of the best coaches I know. So, great afternoon for me.
We're going to put together a package deal.
Not enough time. There's only one book.
I know.
I'll send you another book. Then
Sounds good.
So, Dean, what's next for you?
Well, I'm going to write a sales book, a basic sales book. I mean, the last thing the world needs is another sales book, but I like the techniques that I teach. I'm going to continue teaching and working with students, recent college graduates. I've got a couple of programs I'm going to be doing now with some students. Again, the basics of business, and continuing to promote my courses with LinkedIn Learning. So it's a nice mixed portfolio of things for, as you said, you both worked in the corporate world for many years. Same with me. And it's a different avenue now. And I love it. It's different, but I love it.
Well, it comes through in every page you write. It comes through certainly in the way you talk. And anybody out there who's looking for any kind of guidance in the business world ought to be reaching out to you. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely. Dean, what would you say to someone who's watching, who's in corporate America, and they've been thinking about leaving and going out on their own?
Well, it's something that I actually do talk about a lot, and it's something we all think about when we're lying in bed. I want to do something different. And the most important thing is you have to have a plan. You have to have a strategy. You can't just say, I want to go into consulting or I want to go into coaching. You have to think about this for a while. And I talk about it in a form of, I call it paths. You have a path, a conservative path where you just stay where you are, be quiet, get your paycheck and go home, work hard. Then you have one where you try to advance in your own company, look for new opportunities. And then the third one is you have to start networking and talk to people like Dr. Jacalyn, talk to people like Al, and say, what are things that are going on out there in the marketplace? And then the fourth path is you get really aggressive and you can say, I want to just do my own thing. And Now, I had all of those paths in place. I had the greatest job in publishing, working with a great company, but it was time to move on. And my house is paid, the kids are out of college, so I wanted to do something different. And again, as I said before, I went back to school. Again, stressing the importance of always be learning, whether you're 25, 45, 65, or 85. You have to continually learn new things, because if you don't, you fall behind. So I went back to school. I advanced different programs, came up with some ideas, and I had a few things that didn't go right. Like you said, Al, with some of the things you worked on, some things didn't go the way you wanted. But now, again, I divide my time up with probably 30% coaching, sales training, my work with my book, and my LinkedIn learning courses. A nice portfolio of mixed ventures, which is a lot of fun.
Really nice, and real contributions to the working world for sure, for people out there who need that kind of guidance. It's terrific.
It can be done. You just you can't wait, though. You don't want to say this when you're 70. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. You have to have these ideas in mind, and some people have the stomach more for it than others. Some people jump into the entrepreneurial market at 23 years old. I couldn't have done that. I wanted to eat. So some people are, they live on, the bread and water for a while.
Yeah.
You do what you have to do.
Yeah,
you do. Yeah. There was one other practical lesson in your book that I wanted to make sure I got to before we ended the program, and that was watch your language, because we live in a world that's become increasingly less formal. Yeah. And a lot of people just sort of get out there and say on a Zoom call what they would say to their buddies at a bar, if the bar were open. And I thought that lesson struck me, because I've seen people make that mistake, and I've made that mistake. Where does that come from?
It's just, I don't know if it's old school, or maybe it's my mother looking over my shoulder somewhere. But I think it's just, again, it's being aware. It goes back to emotional intelligence, which I think is another course that everybody should take, is learning emotional intelligence and being aware of the people you're with. And some people are very accepting of the language that covers the gamut, and in many cases, it's inappropriate. And if you get too lax, that's bad. Now, there are some people I worked with through the years that to this day, I can still remember they were being in my office or being in a presentation, and the language was loose and wild. And it's like, I could still remember them. And some of these people are still doing consulting and still doing speaking. And I still remember the fact that they came into an office and it was inappropriate. And it's, in this day and age, my goodness, if you're talking about certain subjects, you can't be doing that. And it's wrong. It's not only wrong, it's illegal. And it puts your company in a bad spot. And whether it's sexual orientation, whether it's women, whether it's color, whether it's religion, politics, come on, it's called using your head. Wake up. You can't do that. And so again, is it old school? Is it rocket science? No, but I think it's important. And it does separate you from some people.
Well, what struck me about it was when I made that mistake, I'd forgotten that there were other people in the room who could hear me. I mean, sometimes you're so focused on the person you're talking to, and you feel like there's something you can do with them.
Right.
And it was when I've gotten in trouble over it, it was other people who overheard what I said. It wasn't the person I was talking to. So you really do need to be mindful of all those things. That's why I think mindfulness is a kind of a theme that runs through your entire book. Such a great book too.
Thank you, Al. Thank you. It's again, I'm not I've made a lot of mistakes in my career, and
they're in here.
We all do, and it's those, again, it's the lessons you learn that you say. That goes back to language. Hey, I did some stupid things. We all have, but then you say you're not going to do it again, and you learn your lesson. And it's just making people aware of those things, which I think is so important.
I would agree with you. So we've come to the end of our program, which I can't believe has gone by so quickly. Dean, where can we find your book? We're running the ticker tape across the bottom with your information, but if we want to buy your book, we go on Amazon, and where else?
It's available on Amazon.com in a Kindle format, in a paperback format, an audio format. It's also available at Barnes & Noble and barnesandnoble.com. I buy copies also from my local independent bookseller because they're able to get copies, and I get it that way too. So it's available, as a lot of your guests have said, where fine books are sold. And same with me.
Excellent book.
Yes, Al, Cini, and I highly recommend it, and we urge everyone to go out and get a copy of it. And Dean, also to reach you for coaching, we can go to your LinkedIn, and all of your information is there.
Yes, it is. And I just want to thank you both. Engaged, interested, energized. I mean, I think we could talk a few more hours. I love being with you today.
Yeah, it was fun.
Well, we'd love to have you back. You were an excellent guest, and we love everything that you're doing. So keep up the great work, and we'll look forward to your second book.
Thank you so much. Thank you both. Take care.
Thanks, you, everyone. So that's a wrap for today here on Wrapping with Dr. Jacalyn. We are going to go to a break, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for being here.
RVN TV is a platform for people of any industry to share their story. Over 285,000 viewers are tuning in to RVN TV shows monthly. We guarantee a great experience that you'll be sharing with everyone you know while increasing your personal and company's brand awareness. But what is your brand? According to Forbes, it's a combination of your logo, your product, your design and feel, and your personality. Did you know that aside from being a guest, we offer even more opportunity to boost your brand? Adding your company logo and website on screen during your interview will allow viewers to recognize your brand instantly. Incorporating images and video clips is another great way to showcase your product during your live segment. Let viewers see how good you really are. And most importantly, there's you and your interview. For less than the cost of a newspaper, direct mail, or a magazine ad, you can leave our studio and within 48 hours have a permanent digital copy of your live segment to link to your social media, embed into your company website, or use in email marketing. Investing in your brand is so very important, and we can't wait to have you as a guest.